in the shadowed annals of the Hearth of Eternity, where Aldric's apprentices learned to infuse sustenance with sorcery. There lurked a tale of ambition, unchecked a story of Eamon, the rogue student whose gifts nearly unraveled the fragile peace between Auralis and Varkis. Eamon had arrived at the academy as a gaunt refugee from the borderlands, his eyes haunted by the scars of war. Orphaned in the brutal skirmishes that erupted after King Theron's fall, he carried a bitterness that ran deeper than the wounds on his flesh. As a child, Eamon had watched his village, a humble cluster of thatched homes nestled between the two kingdoms, reduced to ash in a senseless border raid. Auralisian soldiers, driven by Theron's paranoia over Varkisian encroachments, had stormed through, accusing the villagers of harboring spies. His parents, simple farmers who had never lifted a sword, were cut down in the chaos, their pleas for mercy drowned out by the clash of steel. Eamon, barely 10, hid in the root cellar, emerging to find his world in ruins. Siblings slain, neighbors scattered or dead, and the land salted to prevent regrowth. The Varkisians, in retaliation, swept through weeks later, pillaging what little remained, leaving Eamon to wander as a beggar, scavenging scraps while the mighty rulers in their distant palaces traded barbs and treaties. This cycle of destruction, fueled by the whims of kings and queens who never felt the hunger or loss of the common folk, planted seeds of resentment in his soul. He came to view the powerful Theron, Cirith, even the reformist Eliraz's parasites, feasting on the suffering of the overlooked. Why do they hoard peace for themselves? He would mutter in his dreams, while we pay in blood. Aldric's academy offered a glimmer of hope, a chance to wield power through food. But Eamon's bitterness twisted that light into a weapon for vengeance, a way to make the elite taste the chaos they sowed. Under the chef's guidance, Eamon mastered recipes that bent reality, soups that induced visions of the future, breads that amplified strength tenfold, and elixirs that could twist loyalties like vines around a trellis. Aldric saw potential in him, a spark of brilliance amid the embers of loss, but he warned of the dangers of hubris. Our craft nourishes souls, Aldric would say, not devours them. Eamon nodded, but in his heart, the resentment festered like an untended wound. He dreamed of reshaping the world, not mending a dove-wielding power to punish those who had wronged the forgotten like him, to force the kingdoms to their knees as repayment for the orphans they created and the homes they destroyed. Years into his apprenticeship, Eamon vanished one moonless night, stealing a tome of Aldric's most potent formulas. Whispers followed, sightings of a cloaked figure peddling miracle feasts in the underbelly of cities, where outlaws and dissidents gathered. At first, his actions seemed benign, feeding the starving, empowering the oppressed. But his deep-seated bitterness poisoned his path, transforming his gifts into tools of retribution. He began crafting dishes tailored for chaos, a venomous pie that sowed paranoia among eaters, causing allies to turn on one another, a stew that granted illusory armies, fooling scouts into reporting invasions that weren't there. These creations were born from his memories of loss of pie, echoing the distrust that led to his village as false accusations. The stew mimicking the phantom threats that justified endless wars. He sold them to the highest bidders, playing both sides of the lingering tensions between Auralis and Varkis, delighting in how the elite's own greed would unravel their thrones. The brink came swiftly. In Auralis, Archduchess Lira's council dined on what they believed was a gift from a neutral merchant, a platter of gilded fruits from Eamon's hand. The fruit ignited hallucinations of Varkisian spies in their midst, leading to purges that executed innocent diplomats. Queen Cirith of Varkis, in retaliation, received a peace-offering banquet laced with Eamon's rage-infused roast, which amplified her suspicions into declarations of war. Armies mobilized, Auralis's crystal spires fortified with mage wards, Varkis's iron legions marching across the sea. Border clashes erupted, villages burned, and the continent teetered on the edge of total annihilation. Eamon, hidden in a mountain lair, watched with grim satisfaction. His rogue feasts, funding a personal empire built on the ruins of trusty Jacked, a strike against the systems that had orphaned him and countless others. Aldric, upon learning of his student's betrayal, felt the weight of failure like a stone in his gut. "I taught him to heal, not harm," he confessed to Lira, who had rushed to the hearth from Auralis at the first signs of crisis. Lira, her magic now a symphony of restored power thanks to Aldric's initial gift, placed a hand on his shoulder. "We mend this together," she said, her voice a balm against his turmoil. Their bond, forged in gratitude and shared trials, deepened in those frantic days. They pored over remnants of the stolen tome, Aldric's culinary wisdom intertwining with Lira's arcane insights. Together, they devised an antidote, a grand elixir called the Harmony Broth, a counterspell in liquid form that could dispel Eamon's illusions and restore clarity to the afflicted. Venturing into the fray, Aldric and Lira disguised themselves as wandering cooks, infiltrating the war camps of both kingdoms. In Auralis, Lira's illusions cloaked them as they slipped the broth into the council's water supply, unraveling the paranoia that gripped Lira's advisors. In Varkis, Aldric's stealthy hands seasoned Sirith's royal feast, quenching the flames of her induced fury. As the kingdom's leaders awoke from their delusions, realizing the manipulations, envoys were dispatched to sue for peace. But Eamon remained the shadow at the heart of it all. Tracking him to his lair through Lira scrying spells and Aldric's intuitive sense of his own recipe's echoes, they confronted the rogue. Eamon, surrounded by platters of his twisted creations, sneered at his former master. "You hoarded power for the worthy," he accused, his voice cracking with the raw edge of his pain. "While the borderlands bled for king's games, you served them feasts of immortality. My family died because of their wars, slaughtered like animals in a raid that meant nothing to anyone but us. I give power to the desperate to make the mighty feel what we felt: fear, loss, the end of everything they hold dear." A battle of wills ensued. Eamon hurled enchanted delicacies that summoned spectral beasts' phantoms, reminiscent of the soldiers who haunted his nightmares. But Lira's magic shielded Aldric as he prepared a final dish, a simple loaf baked with remorse wheat and truth serum herbs. Forcing Eamon to taste it, the bread stripped away his illusions of grandeur, flooding him with visions of the suffering he'd caused not just to the elite, but to the very common folk he claimed to avenge. Innocence caught anew in the crossfire of his vendetta. Broken, he surrendered, his abilities sealed by Lira's binding spell. In the aftermath, as Auralis and Varkis forged a lasting alliance sealed by a shared feast at the hearth, Aldric and Lira stood side by side. The crisis had tested them, revealing depths of trust and affection unspoken before. "You've always been my anchor," Aldric admitted under the Academy's glowing hearths, his hand finding hers. Lira smiled, her eyes reflecting the magic they shared. "And you, my light." Eamon, redeemed in part, was confined to the Academy for atonement. His story, a cautionary lesson for future students, a reminder that bitterness unchecked devours the avenger as surely as the avenged. Thus, from the brink of ruin, a rogue's folly birthed unbreakable bonds, ensuring the hearth's legacy endured not just in flavors, but in the hearts it united.